Trump's Supreme Court travel ban win was especially painful for a lot of Muslims in America. Now look, the final version may have been watered down, but I'm old enough to remember back when Donald Trump was calling for a complete and total shutdown of all Muslims entering the U.S. And hate crimes against Muslims in the United States have actually spiked a great deal since his election. According to the FBI, those attacks rose by 19% in 2016. So I got back in my van, I traveled to Paterson, New Jersey. I want to hear directly from the people who live there. How are they dealing with all this stuff? And I want you to hear directly from them. Take a look. All right. New Jersey, here we come. We are driving through Paterson, New Jersey. It is the second largest population of Muslims in the United States.
Welcome. How are you? Nice to meet you.
Hello. How are you? It's my Uber for today. How's everything? Good?
What's up, man?
How are you?
What does it mean to be a Muslim in Trump's America?
I was walking down the street and a guy just saw me and he was like, "Oh, like I can't believe you're covered like this." And he's like, "Oh, that's why Trump just ship you guys all back out."
Yeah.
Like, ship me back where? Like, you know, I've been raised here. I'm a U.S. citizen just like you. We just want equal rights. That's all we want. In my point of view, he gave the green light for people to act that way. And it's because he makes it seem like it's okay, and it's not.
He's trying to clash people against each other. I think he's putting us into groups.
How do you think he's putting people in groups?
When you're trying to label people all with one single brush and to say that this is all Mexicans are rapists, not MS-13. All Muslims are bad, not a few. I think this is a problem. That's something just simply unacceptable.
You know, I think it's beyond Trump. Look, I grew up being Muslim in this country, being the only Muslim in the entire school district, okay? I've been beaten up, I've been screamed at, I've gotten every single epithet in the book.
You're a Muslim Trumper. I think people might be surprised to hear that. Why, as a Muslim, would you support somebody like Donald Trump, who seems to be pretty tough on Muslims?
Well, I take it this way. I mean, for the past multiple administrations, we have had a lot of lip service towards Muslims, and then a whole bunch of firepower levied on top of Muslims. If you look at what we've had to deal with post 9/11, I think this is really a phenomenon of post 9/11, regardless of whether it was a Republican or a Democrat administration, we've been demonized.
One of the main demonizers is Donald Trump. Isn't that true?
I don't think Donald Trump's a demonizer. I don't think he's necessarily helping, but I think, you know, the demonization comes from the media. I mean, think about this. On a daily basis, all you see is terrorism. You never see the good things that Muslims are doing in this country. Think about Hollywood for the past 20, 30 odd years. Outside of the Big Sick, name one movie that portrays Muslims in some sort of favorable light.
Don't you think that Donald Trump coming in day one in office, or even when he launched the campaign, did not know that the values of this country should not permit him to say what he needed, like what he was saying?
I think Donald Trump wasn't the type of leader that you're accustomed to.
There's a lot of things that the post-Donald Trump era that became normal. We normalized bigotry. We
haven't normalized bigotry.
She just said it.
George W. Bush went out of his way to make sure, he said, I'm not against all Muslims. It's not about Islam. Trump says Islam hates us.
Right.
That has to bother you, doesn't it?
No, it's irritating, but you know, it's the same problem that we've had for a period of time.
You have to realize like what it's doing to our youth, because so many kids are getting attacked in school and bullied in school, and it's not okay, and it's becoming normal, and it shouldn't be normal.
The question is there an impact of the rhetoric that Trump started when he started his campaign? The answer is absolutely yes, and we cannot deny that. We're trying to tell Donald Trump that you need to be the president for all Americans, including Muslims.
It has nothing to do with speaking about people. I mean, Obama spoke about Muslims fine and bombed the living hell out of them.
I remember when he did the travel ban on Muslims, and you automatically want to ban Muslims from all these different countries from coming in. You're already assuming that all these countries have terrorists and all these Muslims coming from there are terrorists, and that's not true. Like, we're all immigrants, and majority of this country is immigrants, and Donald Trump's family came from a different country as well.
My father was sponsored here by a steel company in the 60s. And that's how, a lot of Muslims came to America. They were engineers, they were doctors, that sort of thing.
Well, hold on a second. You are pointing out, I think rightly, that a lot of Muslims came here to the United States. They were engineers. They did a good job. A lot of those people with the Muslim ban were not even allowed to come into the country. They were like literally in air, in the midair, and weren't allowed to come in.
Well, that was for 8% of the population, and it was roughly about 8 countries where they didn't have paperwork.
Whenever a white guy shoots up anything, they talk about mental health issues. If a black guy shoots somebody, then he must be some kind of a thug. If a Muslim shoots somebody, it's automatically a terrorist. I mean, how does that land with you guys? I mean, how do you think about that when you see?
It's horrible, but it's reality.
I think the saddest story that I heard is that a teacher actually had a kid who was 11 years old to get up in the middle of the class and tell her. She asked him to speak to everyone about ISIS, and the mother came to us in the center, and she was crying. She was crying that her son had to be the spokesperson for ISIS. And it just tells you the kind of reality that the Muslim community is living in right now.
The thought process here, and which is a flawed thought process, is that, okay, if you know about your religion, you'll be able to say something against this type of a thing, when in all reality, I mean, there's very few people that are well equipped to sit there and take apart ISIS. And
but you wouldn't ask a little Christian kid to stand up and talk about the Ku Klux Klan.
Right. I mean, I think one of the things that we have to think about is that we're living in an age post 9/11 where the onus is upon us as American Muslims to basically tell people who we are so that they're not afraid of us.
So you're a young woman, and you're covered. Why not just take it off? I mean, it seems like it causes all kind of problems, and maybe your life would be a little bit easier if you just wore a baseball cap.
It's actually easier said than done, but this year I make 11 years wearing the hijab, and I'm very proud of it. It's part of me. I feel like it makes me who I am. So for me to just take it off, I'll feel naked, literally. If people say, oh, you're so oppressed and you're covered and all this stuff, no, it's not. I chose to wear it.
We need to be reminded with the values that this country was built on. I think this value has the best protection for us and has the tolerance that we're looking for, the acceptance that we're looking for, the celebration of diversity that we're looking for. And only if we're reminded with these values that we're going to be able to live with one another in harmony.